Have you ever seen a moment on live TV so powerful it stopped you in your tracks? Not because of anger or controversy, but because someone stood for something deeply human, something unshakable, dignity, truth, and kindness? What unfolded between Caroline Leavitt and President Ibrahim Traoré wasn't just political. It was personal. It was a reminder of what leadership really looks like when power meets heart. And it all started with a single insult, one meant to humiliate, but that ended up sparking something far greater. It was supposed to be a routine panel discussion on a global current affairs broadcast. 5 experts seated in a cold, high-ceilinged studio lit by harsh white lights with the world watching. On one side sat Caroline Leavitt, sharp-tongued, ambitious, rising fast in political media. On the other, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, calm, soft-spoken, but known for his unwavering stance on sovereignty and compassion. The host had barely introduced the segment before Caroline leaned into the microphone with a confident smirk. "With all due respect," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm, "Burkina Faso's president has been parading around like a hero, talking about dignity and aid, while half his country can't access clean water. I think we need to stop glorifying speeches and start demanding real action. What exactly has he done?" The studio went silent, not because her words were factual, they weren't, but because of how she said them. Sharp, dismissive, personal, the kind of tone that cuts through the soul, meant to wound, not to reason. President Traoré didn't respond immediately. He looked down, hands folded, the silence stretched. Then, in a voice so quiet it made everyone lean in, he asked one simple question. "Would you like to know what I've done, or what kindness has done through us?" The air shifted. You could hear the faint hum of the studio lights, the rustle of papers, the sudden discomfort of confrontation, not met with anger, but grace. And then he told them a story. He spoke of a boy named Tano, born in the dry northern regions of Burkina Faso. Tano had lost his parents to a malaria outbreak when he was just 5. He survived by sleeping under mango trees, drinking from muddy streams and walking miles for bread that sometimes never came. For years, Tano never spoke to anyone. Trauma had stolen his words. Until one day, a young woman named Aissata, a nurse volunteering in a mobile clinic, noticed him. She didn't lecture him, didn't pity him. She simply sat beside him day after day in silence. One afternoon, she brought him a book. She couldn't read it either, but she pointed to the pictures. A lion, a river, a sun. She smiled. And for the first time, Tano whispered something. Water. That single word unraveled a dam inside him. Aissata cried, not out of sorrow but hope. Because when someone who has known only silence speaks, it's not a word, it's a resurrection. With help from local leaders and community grants, funded not by foreign aid, but by regional partnerships Ibrahim had brokered, Tano's village got a borehole, then a school, then solar lights. Tano learned to read. Later, he taught. Today, he writes letters to orphans around the country, reminding them that even when the world forgets you, kindness doesn't. "I didn't save Tano," Traoré said softly. "A nurse with no power did. A community did. Kindness did. That is what I fight for." Caroline tried to cut in, her voice louder now, tighter. "But stories don't fix nations. Policies do. And your critics—" He gently raised a hand. "Yes, critics. We all have them. But let me tell you about another critic," he said, glancing toward the camera. "Her name was Amélie, a journalist from France. She came to Burkina Faso to expose the poverty. I invited her to walk with me. No guards, no press. Just a walk through one of our smallest villages. They met a woman there named Mariam, widowed, raising 3 children on cassava and hope. Emily asked why she wasn't angry, why she wasn't shouting at the government. Miriam smiled and said, "Because anger doesn't feed children, but love might." The next day, Emily dropped her assignment. She didn't write the article. She came to write. Instead, she wrote about how kindness was building something stronger than outrage. She raised funds, helped install a clean water system, sent back books. Her entire view of the continent shifted. "You see," Traoré said, eyes locking with Caroline's, "you thought I would answer your insult with defense, but I'm answering it with stories. Because that's how you reach the heart, not with argument, but with truth lived out loud." The audience, silent until now, erupted in applause. Even the host looked shaken. But Traoré wasn't finished. He leaned forward, voice rich and clear. "And there is one more story. One not about my country, but about yours," he said, glancing at Caroline but speaking to the millions watching. "Years ago, after my father died, I studied abroad briefly in America. I was 19. My French accent was thick, my clothes were torn, and I worked 3 jobs to afford my books. One night, exhausted, I sat outside a diner counting change for a coffee I couldn't afford. A waitress came out, middle-aged, pale hands rough from decades of work. She placed a hot mug of coffee beside him and said, "On the house, sweetheart. You remind me of my son." She didn't ask where he was from. She didn't care about race or politics. She just gave. Traoré choked up for a second on live TV and continued. "She never knew I would become president. She didn't give because I was powerful. She gave because I was human." His voice lowered. "And that, Caroline, is the kind of action that changes nations." By now, even the most hard-shelled critics had gone quiet. Caroline's eyes glistened, her lips pressed together. For once, she had no retort, not because she lost an argument, but because something inside her, something that hadn't been spoken to in years, was finally seen. The segment ended with silence. Not awkward silence, reverent silence. And in the days that followed, millions shared the clip. Not because it was political drama, but because it was the kind of rare TV moment that made people feel deeply. Acts of kindness don't always make headlines, but they make nations. They rebuild what fear tears down. They remind us, no matter our flag, color, creed, or camera angle, that the heart responds to love more than it ever will to dominance. And that night, as the broadcast faded to black, a small note appeared on screen. One sentence: "Be kind. You never know who's listening."